Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is LO3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Thursday, April 6th, 2017. Yes, and I am podcasting at CJ's Java Lounge, located at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, along the beautiful New River Southwest section along the Andrews Avenue Bridge. Yeah, looks like this has some corporate 5K run. People are stretching, we're doing a little party and all that. Probably see all the Dinkleberries and the buffoons, political figureheads out there. Oh yeah, hi, I'm a bobblehead for the mayor of Fort Lauderdale and the commissioners and all that. We don't care about our city, but we still treat our people like garbage. Ain't that a great concept? So, yeah, I'm just gonna be, a lot of good folks out there just having fun for a good cause and all that good stuff. Yeah, so, basically, I'm going to be mainly talking about what's going on in Syria. I know I did a rant yesterday on it on my last episode. So I just got some more information, and I was pretty damn convinced about false flag, New World Order agenda, etc. So looks like there's talks about maybe a military force is possibly going to be used in the United States. The status quo continues, allegedly, right? And so it's gonna, what the hell, just start this off right now. And it will be here. This is breaking, not just from Anti-Media. It came out at 1:03 p.m. It says, Trump administration now discussing regime change in Syria. And of course, on here, it says it's from Anti-War originally. So Jason Ditz wrote it. Good site, antiwar.com. Check it out. And of course, here on 3:11 Eastern Daylight Time, Secretary State Rex Tillerson is calling for President Assad's ouster. How sweet and astute are you, Secretary of State Tillerson? So I'm going to read it. So he has that imperialistic fetish. Yes, we need more men like him, foaming at the mouth and all climax, symbolically speaking. So this is what they have to say. Mr. Ditch has to say this. Has to say, President Trump's campaign stands moving away from the U.S. trying to impose regime change on Syria. Appears to have totally abandoned at this point, with reports that he has informed some members of Congress that he's considering a military attack on Syria. Trump said to be discussing the different options of such an attack with Secretary of Defense James Mattis, and he is likely to rely on Mattis's judgment on the matter. Officials say the Pentagon has such plans ready to go for quite some time. The shift in Trump administration policy is publicly being justified by a bombing attack in northwest Syria Tuesday, allegedly a chemical weapons attack. President Trump insists Syria has crossed many lines and is insisting that his position on Syria has changed, adding that I now have responsibility when it comes to Syria. Ooh. U.S., British, and French diplomats are once again pushing for UN action against Syria now, though a Russian veto at the Security Council is assured, with Russian officials saying the resolution is based on fake information. U.S. officials are already looking beyond the UN and threatening unilateral action. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, insisted the UN has consistently failed to act against Syria and warned that states will as a result, be compelled to act unilaterally without UN authorization. Haley added that Syria's illegitimate government was committing untold atrocities. Who is her damn role model? Colin Powell? Good grief, I'm hearing the same old bicker over and over and over again. Yes, and I will proceed here. All this sounds remarkably familiar to the statements by U.S. officials when the Obama administration was planning to attack Syria. And while it's not clear President Trump is willing to risk war with Russia by launching such an operation, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson's warning that Russia needs to reconsider its continued support for Syria, suggesting that at the very least the administration is fine with continuing to raise tensions with Russia over the matter. The attack incident, however, still has a lot of questions, with the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons still just starting to probe the incident and is well short of assigning responsibility. U.S. officials, along with British and French officials, immediately had a complete narrative fitting with their interest in moving against Syria, and they're refusing to consider any possibility that runs counter to that, including Russia's suggestion that a conventional airstrike has caused a leak in a rebel chemical cache. The Pentagon claimed they detected the bombs on radar and confirmed they were from a Syrian warplane. Of course, because chemical and conventional bombs don't show up differently on a radar, this still does not discredit Russia's version of events. The shift in U.S. policy, however, really began before the alleged gas attack even took place. As in the days ahead of it, officials were again demanding Assad's ouster, and rebel officials were reporting that the previous halted CIA arms shipment has been resumed recently. This is just serving as a justification for being more public with it and hyping a war of regime change. Obviously, all the same problem with the U.S. moving against Syria militarily, which Trump pointed out in presidential debates, are still problems and that may ultimately deter an American attack. Either way, the Trump administration is looking to rebrand their official stance as a hostile one, and one which is likely to please other NATO members who sees it as a chance to forestall any normalization with U.S.-Russia ties. Oh, yes, how manly it is to beat a nation when they're down. Right? Think about that. It's like you remember the old saying, never beat anyone when they're down? Oh, yeah, but when it comes to a nation that's being bombarded, that's okay because we are exceptional. So effing special. Remember the time when he talked about the safe zones in Syria? All right? There's something to really comprehend. This is pretty damn insulting as far as I'm concerned. So what I wanted to do, the good nature of a person that I am, I'm going to add the footnotes. This is from NewsBuds that came out January 30th, 2017 by Kurt Nemo. A great video, Safe Zones, Trump Continues War in Syria. All right, so if this is the case, you know John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and maybe Glamboy Rubio will be climaxing, getting fetishistic and foaming at the mouth. Like, yeah, more wars, more wars. And I know Lindsey Graham, John McCain, and of course Marco Rubio may be using bar Palmolive soap and go, okay, my hands are too soft. You guys do all the dirty work. This is what they want you to do. So, this has been coming out for a good period of time now. Having you recall, too, with the whole Wesley Clark talked about the 7 nations the United States supposed to attack. Syria's on that list as well, right? Yeah, definitely look that up for sure. So, this is one thing I can't stand when you got presidential candidate bobbleheads out there. We're gonna do this and do that. I mean, everyone's foaming at the mouth like there's some Lord and Savior. Now look what happened. More things change and more stay the same. Yeah, I can say that. But I still say Trump is a patsy. Yeah. So what is Schumer and all the other clowns? Will they unite with Trump on this, or are they still going to oppose it? Doesn't want to be their buddies either. So I did wrote my letter to my congressman and say no war in Syria, no military force by any means. I'm going to head to the Senate as well, especially to Glamboy Rubio. Everyone out there in the United States, you need to take the initiative to say hell no to the war. Hell no to the war in Syria. It's unacceptable. It's censured. You have to condemn this with the passion. And are you tired of seeing your money being extorted for their personal gain? Talk about the neocons, the one world order, the new world order, one world government, wherever you want to look at it. That's right, because one thing I know for sure, these bend over bobs that are manifesting on it never really got their hands dirty, and I am digressing. I apologize for that. Remember, 4 years ago, it didn't work out. All right? I'm going to continue on. I'm going to continue on after this because other stuff is happening with this topic. So that's enough of that. So I'm going to add that video on here on Trump's continued war in Syria. And so, folks, you can really judge for yourself. And this right here came from Counterpunch, and it's by Joshua Frank on that gas attack. We don't need conspiracies to oppose U.S. war in Syria. And as it reads here, and this is stuff called leftist site, but they're have America, I see, and bash everybody. So I like that. It was a false flag. Al-Qaeda did it. Why would Assad use chemical weapons when he's winning the war? It had to be those evil terrorists. These are pretty cries by some conspiracy-minded left with regards to this week's barbaric chemical attack in the rebel held down of Khan Sheikhon, which took the lives of at least 74 and injured another 350. Of course, the United States lays all the blame for the attack at the feet of President Bashar al-Assad, who have been implicated in many war crimes over the years. And surprisingly, the Russians, Assad's chief allies, have countered, claiming the Syrians bombed a toxic weapons depot that unleashed the deadly nerve agent. So in the end, according to Russia, these civilians were simply collateral damage in the war on terror. An endless war, mind you, that the left once opposed. British chemical weapons expert Colonel Hamash that Breton Gordon poked holes in Russia's official account, calling it fanciful, noting that blowing up sarin, the alleged gas used in the attack, actually eliminates it. Dan Cazetta over at Bellingcat concurred, even assuming that large quantities of both sarin precursors were located in the same part of the same warehouse, a practice that seems odd. An airstrike is not going to cause the production of large quantities of sarin. Dropping a bomb on the binary components does not actually provide the correct mechanism for the making the nerve agent. It's an infantile argument. One of the procurers is isopropyl alcohol. It will go up in a ball of flame, a large one, which has not been in evidence. That said, although I can speculate, I have no idea who carried out the awful attack or what their intentions could possibly have been. But what I know is that this was very clearly a war crime, and this is now being used as a pretext for escalated U.S. military action in Syria. In response to the attack, an emotional Donald Trump stated during a joint news conference with King Kabal II of Jordan, when you kill innocent children, innocent babies, little babies, that crosses many, many lines beyond a red line. Really? I thought it was a polka dot one. I'll continue on here. Following his lambasting of President Obama for not doing enough to challenge Assad, Trump signaled that he may take matters into his own hands. Will you go on the front line there, Donald boy? Like most of Trump's biosterous rhetoric, he may be full of shit, but let's not sit around to find out. After blaming himself for the attack in an emergency UN meeting, Ambassador Nikki Haley upped the ante. If Russia has the influence in Syria that it claims to have, we need to see them use it. We need to see them put an end to these horrific acts. How many more children have to die before Russia cares? When the United Nations consistently fails in its duty to act collectively, there are times in the life of states that We are compelled to take our own action for the sake of the victims. I hope the rest of the council is finally willing to do the same. Sure sounds like war talk to me. Yeah, so Haley, you going to the front line too? I want to see how tough you are, okay? Pathetic people, man. Trump and any future forays his military brain trust may be conjuring up must be opposed. Like the U.S. in Iraq and Afghanistan, any military venture in Syria will only make matters worse. Building a real movement against U.S. war in Syria and elsewhere is far more crucial than defending Assad against allegations that he was behind the deaths in Khan Sheikhoun. Such hollow conspiracy efforts have led to the perpetual decline of the left, as Alexander Cockburn once wrote. These days, a dwindling numbers of leftists learn their political economy from Marx via the small, mostly Trotskyist groupuscles into the theoretic and strategic void has crept a diffuse, peripatetic conspiracist view of the world that tends to locate ruling class devilry not in the crisis of capital accumulation or the falling rate of profit on inter-imperial competition, but in locale, the Bohemian Grove, Bilderberg, Ditchley, Davos, or supposedly rogue agencies with the CIA still at the head of the list. Even if Assad is guilty of what he's accused, U.S. military intervention must be fought. We don't need conspiracies to justify our opposition to war in Syria. What we need are grounded class-oriented politics and an intellectual anti-imperialist wake-up call. We need organizing. So let's quit peddling baseless theories and get to work. And he wrote a book on here, Hopeless Barack Obama and the Politics of Illusion. And Joshua Frank is correct. And you remember this. We done it 4 years ago. Let's do it again times 12. Minimum. That's why I want everyone out there to go and fight against this military actions in Syria. Tangling alliances is dangerous. George Washington addressed that in his farewell address. What is your intake on it? I say no. And you got, like I said, these politicians who want to go out there and fight, and want to go out there and support this. You go on the front line. Plain and simple. And people in Syria know that it has some differences with Assad, but it got a lot worse when people stuck their nose in it and don't belong. So I'm going to continue on here. It's from Ron Paul's Liberty Report. It says here, false flag, Ron Paul's Syrian chemical attack makes no sense. And the Daily Caller News Foundation by Christian Dadak. Ron Paul claimed on Wednesday's broadcast of the Liberty Report that all signs point toward Tuesday's chemical attack in Syria being a false flag operation. For this episode of possible gas exposure and who did what, things were going along reasonably well for the conditions. A former Texas congressman stated, Trump said, let the Syrians decide who should run their country, and peace talks were making out, and Al-Qaeda and ISIS were on the run. It looks like maybe somebody didn't like that there had to be an episode, and the blame now is we can't let that happen because it looks like it might benefit Assad. It's not so easy, though, is it? What happened 4 years ago in 2013, you know. This whole thing about crossing the red line he posed. Ever since then, the neocons have been yelling and screaming. A part of the administration has been yelling and screaming about Assad using poison gas. It was never proven in fact, agreed Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity Executive Director Daniel McAdams, UN official Carla Del Ponte said it was most likely done by the rebels. It makes no sense, even if you're totally separate from this and take no sides of this and you're just an analyst. It doesn't make sense for Assad under these conditions to all of a sudden use poison gases. Paul continued, I think it is zero chance that he would have done this deliberately. Back in January, Paul said in an interview with the Daily Caller that false flag attacks could be used by both of the so-called American deep state and foreign actors to draw the Trump administration into foreign engagements. All we need is a false flag and an accident. Everybody will be for teaching them a lesson, he told the DC's Alex Pfeiffer. You know, the deep state is very, very powerful, and they have a lot of control. I think there's a shadow government, military-industrial complex, the CIA, and all things that can be done because they just melt away, and they do exactly what the establishment says. And that's a good article on that. And there's a video link if you want to see it for yourselves. And I posted it on Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus most of the time. And definitely, folks, check this out. You'd be surprised if you study history too of false flag events. All right, things happen, and even happened in Rwanda with the president's plane got shot down on April 6, 1994, and that's when the Holocaust began. The next day, the 100-day genocide, democide, we want to call it, because he's doing the peace talks, creating a truce, and he got taken out too. It's just the patterns are too identical. It's just an example. You can look that up, please. You know, I'm not going to add this to my footnotes, but you can look it up, and you'll be surprised if you study these patterns over and over and over again. Someone wants to create more conflict and don't give a damn about any of us in the world. That's why Congressman Paul agrees as well. No foreign tango alignments, and all those neocon butt boys and butt girls that laughed at him and their supporters, look what happened. Look what's been happening. It's blown back in your faces, all you folks that are eating crow. But he doesn't play. Problem is, Congressman Paul does never play ball. That's why people laughed at him, but not anymore. All right, next one here. It'll be from New Eastern Outlook by Tony Carlucci. And actually came out today. And it's entitled, U.S. Didn't Change Priorities in Syria, It Lost. His intake here says, the United States, according to Western media sources, has shifted priorities in Syria, no longer focusing on regime change aimed at Damascus. However, in reality, it's not a shift in priorities. It is the recognition that U.S. ambitions and abilities have been thoroughly disrupted by Syrian, Russian, and Iranian resolve. The U.S. must now resort to pursuing secondary courses of action, no less malicious in intent or ultimate outcome than its original plan, which has left a region at war since 2011. Killed tens of thousands and displaced otherwise disrupted the lives of millions more. Reuters reported titled U.S. priority on Syria no longer focused on getting Assad out, Haley would claim. The United States diplomatic policy on Syria for now is no longer focused on the main action wartime country's president, Bashar al-Assad, leave power. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations said on Thursday in a departure from the Obama administration's initial and public stance on Assad's fate. The view of the Trump administration is also at odds with European powers who insist Assad must step down. The shift drew a strong rebuke from at least two Republican senators. And while some have taken this recent announcement as proof that the White House has made good on its promise to withdraw from the American adventurism abroad, U.S. Ambassador to UN Nikki Haley will go on to claim, do we think he's a hindrance? Yes. Are we going to sit there and focus on getting him out? No. We are going to focus on and putting the pressure in there so we can start to make a change in Syria. The change in Syria, however, is verbatim the partitioning of the nation that began under the previous administration of former U.S. President Barack Obama. is essentially the secondary objective laid out by corporate financier-funded U.S. policymakers as early as 2012, when the initial attempts at lightning-fast regime change failed and the Syrian conflict transformed into a protracted, highly destructive war. In 2012, Brookings Institution documented titled Middle East Memo number 21, Saving Syria, Addressing Options for Regime Change. It's a PDF format, too, if you want to check it out. Revealed U.S. policymakers openly declaring their intentions to create safe havens, stating, emphasis added, as an alternative is for diplomatic efforts to focus first on how to end the violence and how to gain humanitarian access, as being done under a non-leadership. This may lead to the creation of safe havens and humanitarian corridors, which would have to be backed by limited military power. This would, of course, fall short of U.S. goals for Syria and could preserve Assad in power. From that starting point, however, it is possible that a broad coalition with the appropriate international mandate could add further coercive action to its efforts. I always mispronounce this. Coercive actions. Okay. Action to its efforts. Document that would openly admit that failing to overthrow the Syrian government, bleeding the nation, would be an acceptable alternative, claiming, emphasis added. The United States might still am the opposition, even knowing they will probably never have sufficient power on their own to dislodge the Assad network. Washington might choose to do simply in the belief that at least providing an oppressed people with some ability to resist their oppressors is better than doing nothing at all, even if the support provided has a little chance of turning defeat into victory. Alternatively, the United States might calculate that it is still worthwhile to pin down the Assad regime and bleed it, keeping a regional adversary weak while avoiding the cost of direct intervention. Reaffirming U.S. commitment to this 2012 policy is Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. The Guardian's article, Rex Tillerson say U.S. will set up safe zones for its refugees from ISIS. Notes, Rex Tillerson has said the United States will set up interim zones of stability to help refugees return home in the next phase of the fight against Islamic State and Al-Qaeda in Syria and Iraq. The U.S. Secretary of State did not make it clear whether these zones were to be set up. He was addressing a meeting of 68 countries and organizations gathered in Washington to discuss accelerating to the battle against ISIS. Notion that the U.S. is in Syria to fight Islamic State is a documented absurdity. It was the U.S. and its allies, by their own admission, who sought the creation of a Salafist principality in eastern Syria, precisely where the Islamic State now exists. The militant proxy maintains an immense fighting capacity possible through equally immense multinational state sponsorship provided by the U.S. and Europe and laundered through their regional allies in the Persian Gulf, primarily Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Funneling weapons, supplies, and additional fires to the Islamic State has been for years carried out by NATO member Turkey, which maintained extensive logistical networks connecting the Islamic State's foreign sponsors to the Syrian territory it was occupying. Upon Russia's entry into the conflict in late 2015, these logistical networks have been targeted by Russian air power, disrupting them and contributing directly to the Islamic State's now waning strength across the region. U.S. intervention now serves two purposes: to maintain the de facto partitioning of Syrian territory the Islamic State's president contributed to by replacing defeat Islamic State forces with the U.S. forces, and to portray the U.S. as having defeated the very terrorist proxy front it created in the first place and perpetuated as long as logistically, politically, and militarily possible. U.S. Secretary of State Tillerson's reaffirmation of U.S. policy rolled out during the Obama administration is yet another illustration of a continuity of agenda and how special interests on Wall Street, not politicians in Washington, steer U.S. policy at home and abroad and explain how to apparently politically diametrically opposed presidents have maintained virtually the exact same policy over the course of 6 years and counting. While the U.S. clearly lost in its bid to outright overthrow the government of Syria. It continues pursuing an agenda that will divide and destroy the Syrian state through every means available. Continued exposure and resistance to both this agenda and special interests ultimately driving this essential to ensure that this aspect of U.S. ambitions in the Middle East fails as well. Interesting synopsis there too, by him and Mr. Carl Lucy as and that's what you gotta look at. It's like when we gonna butt out. That's it. Butt out. Good grief. That's how I really look at these things. And I know I'm probably ranting and repeating myself in different points of views. Just hey, we all know ISIS is New World Order funded by these nations that was addressed in this article. Nothing new at all. So, another illegal war, completely unacceptable. All right. So, next one here. I'm not too crazy with the National Review, but has an interesting article that caught my eye from the corner. The one and only is by David French. And it came out a couple of hours ago. It says here, Rand Paul is right. Don't launch war in Syria without congressional approval. If Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the United States Constitution means anything, it means that the president must obtain congressional approval before taking us to war against a sovereign nation that has not attacked the U.S. or its allies and is not threatening to attack the U.S. or its allies. Senator Rand Paul said as much in an interview today, and I agree with him. Senator Paul said the first thing we ought to do is probably obey the Constitution. Yes, the Commander-in-Chief has broad inherited authority to order the military to defend the national security and vital national interests of the United States, but every provision of the Constitution has meaning, and the Constitution gives the Congress the power to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures of land and water. While I acknowledge there are difficult questions on the margins about the extent of the presidential authority and when congressional authorization is necessary, I don't believe this is a marginal case. Assad has been engaged in one long war crime since the onset of the Syrian civil war, and his gas attacks are hardly his deadliest, but there has been casus belli for war against Syria on a continuous basis since the onset of Assad's genocide. So I'm not taking sides in that, but that's how the person's writing this. Okay, so pretty neo-con, shall we say, right? But the existence of a legal and moral justification of war does not always render war wise or just, nor does it remove the need for congressional approval. There's no reason to forego congressional debate now. Just there is no reason for a forego congressional debate when Obama considered taking the nation to war against Syria in 2013. Congressional approval is not only constitution, it serves the public purpose of requiring a president to clearly outline the justifications for war and his goals for the conflict. It also helps secure public support for war, and in this instance, it strikes me as reckless, as they would not only go to war against a sovereign nation, we'd also court a possible military encounter with a great power like Russia without congressional approval. The nation needs to be ready for and consider all the grim possibilities and consequences. If Trump wants to go to war, he should take his case to Congress. In those areas, he's right. Even though the side thing, him being responsible, it's allegations. Okay, and on Mr. French's view. But the whole thing is this: you got to prove it. Congress has the power to go to war. So the president has to have merit and any of his associates. Okay? So this is why, here's a fact. The United States constitutionally declared war 5 times. The War of 1812, Mexican-American War, Spanish-American War, World War I, and World War II. Everything else before and after. We're not talking about the war against Britain either. That's still a legitimate war. But everything before and after, anything in between, was illegal, including the war between the states. Was never constitutionally declared. to fight the Confederate States of America. You can look that up. Please. This is what I do. I like to share this information, not from blowing smoke up your rear ends, but giving you facts. So, like I said, thereafter, David French is correct. So, and what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to add a couple videos, a couple links here. This one here came from beforeitsnews.com, and Tom Hannigan reports Syria gas attack fake news. There's a couple of videos on here you should check out. I'm going to add that to the memo. And that's here. Tom Hannigan goes over the latest information regarding the Syrian attacks from his U.S. and French intelligence contacts. There's a reason they've tried to kill Tom Hannigan and Stu Webb so many times now. They put out more truth than anybody on alternative media. These are the names. Nobody else will. So, and they had one in the bottom about it's been debunked. And it was interesting because according to the interview with Hannigan and Stu Webb, they believe Israel's behind, Israel and their lackeys, and the One World Order team, is behind the chemical attacks. So they think it is fraudulent. So, and you have to make their own decision. But the truth of the matter is, my friends, I am convinced it was a New World Order agenda, and I'm not going to back down from it. Because it's been going on over and over and over again. And I do digress. So I'm going to add that to the memo. And plus, interesting here, let's just check this out for the moment. Another thing I'm going to add too is the Syrian chemical attack exposed, which Dan Dick's done from Press for Truth. He had an interview from the past with Press TV and talked about the false flag as well, and how the order wants to control all of the Middle East. You folks, you can check that out yourselves. He's really good. If you can support him, that'd be great. He's a gentleman from Toronto, Canada. And like I said, I'm subscribed to him to YouTube. He follows me on Twitter, so it's pretty cool. And I'm gonna see here. This came out. Yeah, I'm gonna add another one here. Some videos as well. That'd be good to check out. Multiple stuff here from Before It's News. So gives you multiple things about World War III and all that, and Assad. So very controversial information, but like I always tell my friends, always observe responsibly. So I'm going to put that on there as well about Trump to attack Assad. CFR globalist deep state prevails. So very interesting. So and a lot of these sources are on here, AMT and all that. So I'm going to add that in there so you can make your own judgments, okay? I'll just do this little swoop and a swap. Just like that. And, yeah, that is really it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to the show. Plus, feel free to download and share this episode and everything else in my archives throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting I may want to check out, whatever you do, please deliver your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Friends Network, Scene.life, Minds.com. I think I got them all. Okay. Or you can email me at lokiluck3@gmail.com. Or if you're all those sorry about that. Those encrypted types, you can email me at lokiluck03, which is number 0 and 3 at Gmail. Oh, not Gmail, protonmail.com. All right. So once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.